It starts with a question. To get smarter, an AI has to learn from the world. But what happens when the world starts learning from the AI? What happens when a machine's reflection becomes its only teacher? In 2024, researchers from Oxford, Cambridge, and Google DeepMind published a paper in Nature, one of the most rigorously reviewed science journals on Earth. Their finding was almost clinical in how plainly it was stated. When you train a new AI on the output of an old AI, the model can start to degrade. It doesn't forget everything at once. Instead, the weird, wonderful, and rare parts of human knowledge are the first to disappear. With each new generation, the model can become a cleaner, more confident, more average version of itself. It learns its own reflection, and the real world starts to fade away. This isn't some distant theory. It is a process that has already begun. And it's just the first of three major cracks spreading through the foundations of the AI industry. In today's breakdown, we're going to look at the silent problems that the leaderboards and the marketing slogans won't show you, from running out of data, to poisoning the well, to rigging the very scores we use to measure progress. This is the story that nobody bothered to translate. Let's get into it. Crack 1. The data drought. Every large language model is built on a foundation of one resource: human writing. Everything we've published to the open internet, books, articles, forums, scientific papers, is the fossil fuel of the AI industry. For years, this resource felt infinite. But we are now running up against its limits. Researchers at Epoch AI spent years trying to calculate the world's total supply of high-quality human text. Their answer lands around 300 trillion tokens. And Epoch's own updated analysis puts the likely exhaustion window somewhere between 2026 and 2032, depending on how aggressively labs pump the same data through their systems multiple times to squeeze out extra performance. You don't have to take my word for it. Just follow the money. For years, companies like Google and OpenAI scraped data from the public internet for free. But as the stockpile of high-quality human text dwindled, a land grab began. Suddenly, that data had a price tag. In 2024, Reddit signed a deal with Google reportedly worth around $60 million a year. Not long after, it signed another with OpenAI for around $70 million. Then the media giants came to the table. News Corp, owner of the Wall Street Journal, signed a deal with OpenAI valued at more than $250 million over 5 years. Google paid the academic publisher Springer Nature for research papers. One industry tracker estimated that within about 2 years, AI companies had committed close to $3 billion total just licensing human writing. And nobody at the top of this industry is hiding that math. Ilya Sutskever, the co-founder of OpenAI, said it plainly on stage at a major AI conference at the end of 2024. Data, he said, is the fossil fuel of AI. We've achieved peak data, and there will be no more. These companies aren't selling their data out of generosity. They're selling it because it has become one of the scarcest resources in this new economy. When a resource that was once free now costs billions, it tells you one thing: we are approaching the limits of our easiest fuel source. Crack 2. The poisoned well. So if the supply of fresh human data is dwindling, what do you train the next generation of models on? This leads to the second crack, the one those researchers warned us about. The internet is eating itself. The search engine company Ahrefs crawled nearly 900,000 newly created web pages in April of 2025. Their finding: 74.2% of those pages contained AI-generated content. Not a small corner of the internet. 3 out of every 4 new pages. The result is a feedback loop. The internet, which was once a messy but authentic reflection of human thought, is becoming an echo chamber of synthetic text. And this is the Nature paper's warning playing out in real time. The technical term for it is model collapse. Imagine making a photocopy of a photocopy. The first copy looks sharp. The 10th is a little blurry. The 100th is an unrecognizable smudge. Model collapse is the digital version of this. Over successive generations, the model's understanding of the world becomes less detailed, more average, and more divorced from reality. The weird art, the niche scientific theories, the minority opinions get clipped. The model becomes more confident, but its knowledge becomes narrower. Now, to be fair, a separate study from researchers at Stanford and MIT found that this collapse mainly happens when synthetic data replaces real data outright. If labs keep the old human data mixed in alongside the new synthetic data, the collapse can be avoided. The major labs do filter and curate, and that's likely why your ChatGPT or Claude conversations today don't feel like they're degrading in real time. But it also means the entire health of the system now depends on how disciplined every lab chooses to be, forever, with the cheapest option always being the one the Nature paper warned about. The well isn't just drying up, it's being actively poisoned by the very technology it's meant to fuel. Crack 3. The rigged game. Which brings us to the third crack, and perhaps the most unsettling one. Because even if you wanted to know whether any of this is actually affecting AI quality, even if you wanted to track whether these models are holding steady or quietly slipping, the tools we use to measure that are broken too. How do we know if a new AI model is actually better than the last one? Benchmarks, leaderboards, scores. And it turns out those scores are far easier to manipulate than most people assume. In April of 2025, Meta released a version of its Llama 4 model onto a popular ranking site called Chatbot Arena, and it shot up to second place. Researchers later discovered Meta had privately tested 27 different versions of that model behind the scenes, and only published the one that scored best. The version regular users actually got to use afterward performed worse than the one that earned the ranking. That's not a performance. That's cherry picking. Then there's a benchmark called SWE-Bench, used to test how well AI can fix real software bugs. A study from Purdue University and Microsoft found that top models could correctly guess which file contained a bug just from reading the bug report, with no access to the actual code over 70% of the time. That's not reasoning. That's memorization of a test the model had likely already seen during training. And then there's Frontier Math, a math benchmark used to show off OpenAI's O3 model. It came out in January 2025 that OpenAI had secretly funded the benchmark and had access to most of the problems and their solutions before announcing the model's score. The mathematicians who wrote those problems weren't told. Epoch AI, the organization behind the benchmark, later admitted, and I'm quoting directly here, "We made a mistake in not being more transparent. One scoreboard inflated by hidden test versions. One that rewards memory instead of reasoning. One where the company being tested helped fund the test. If the ruler you're using to measure progress is bent, every measurement after that is bent too." The translation. So let's take a step back and look at the three cracks together. The industry is running up against the limits of its most critical resource: new, high-quality human data. Its old data source, the open internet, is being flooded with synthetic content, creating a feedback loop of self-consumption that the science calls model collapse. And the very tools we use to measure whether any of this is affecting AI quality have already been shown, with names attached, to be gameable. None of this means your chatbot is going to suddenly stop working tomorrow, but it does mean that the dominant narrative of endless, exponential progress in AI deserves far more scrutiny. The industry is not on a frictionless rocket ride to superintelligence. It's facing a series of fundamental challenges that are happening just out of view. The evidence has been there all along, published in research papers, said on public stages, reported by name. The challenge was never a lack of information, but a lack of translation. This is what it looks like when an industry driven by hype collides with reality. And now, you know what the leaderboards don't show you. That's the breakdown. See you in the next one.